Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game of Attention. This is Season 3, Episode 7, and our topic for today is using data to build market-specific journeys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Giuseppe Petrelli, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Let me say, with nearly 15 years of experience in the marketing and media sector, I have developed this strong foundation in creating effective communication strategies across various categories, brand, and also channels. My career began on the media agency side, where I focus on crafting optimal campaign messaging and activation strategies. But 3 years ago, I have transitioned to the client side, serving as a European end-to-end connection manager for the Coca-Cola company. And this role has significantly expanded my perspective on marketing initiatives, allowing me also to align on business objectives with channels orchestration and messaging strategies as well. So I place a strong emphasis on understanding the diverse profiles of consumers, but also the contribution that each touchpoint can bring to achieving our goals effectively.
I am Kiessé Lamour. I am Global Head of Media for VML Commerce. I've been at the company for about 3.5 years now. And my career has been predominantly spent a little bit client side in the early days of my career back in France. But then I moved tech and agency side for the past, oh my God, more than 15 years. Feel old just saying that. But yeah, really, really excited to be here this morning to talk about data.
And with that, we can crack straight into some of the questions. So there's quite a lot of different areas to cover here. And obviously, you guys have a huge amount of expertise and background in the area. So yeah, it'd be great to kind of get your thoughts, and we can keep it quite loose and as we move forward and see where we get to today. So the first kind of topic area I'd love to cover with you guys is talking about real-time data. And how important you guys see real-time data in terms of adjusting campaigns mid-flight. So obviously, you can put all the preparation in the world into a campaign, but while you're live and out there in the wild, you need to react quickly. So just a little bit about how important you guys see real-time data in terms of being able to react effectively when you're out in the wild. And Kiessé, would you like to start on that side of things?
Of course. I think real-time data really is incredibly and increasingly important, especially when you're dealing with campaigns mid-flight, as you've said, because there are many reasons, but I'm just going to focus maybe on two or three here so that I don't monopolize airtime. I think the first importance that I see when it comes to real-time data is really the immediacy of feedback, which means that as marketers, agencies, and brands, we have access to instant insights into how our campaigns are performing, which allows us to make quick adjustments, such as tweaking ad copy or targeting different audience segment or reallocating budgets to better performing aspects of our campaigns to improve results. The second benefit, and I think importance of why I believe retail data is key, is when it comes to agility, right? Because the ability to respond swiftly to market changes or emerging trends can give you a competitive edge and maximize your results. And then the last point, I think, I know we always talk about it, ad nauseam, but I would like to mention personalization, as you can tailor your message to better meet the needs and preferences of your audiences on the flight, which can lead to higher engagement or more effective recruitment strategies, and in fine, higher conversion rates as well, especially in the context of commerce.
And I think the whole piece around agility and that personalization, and almost like, I know that the word that's used quite a lot now is almost hyper personalization, is really, really amazing. Giuseppe, it'd be great to get your thoughts in terms of using that real-time data and that kind of mid-flight, mid-campaign approach.
Yes, and indeed, I want also to comment on what Key and Kiessé was bringing here, trying to using also different perspective from a brand standpoint, because especially in our company, we truly believe that everything starts from humans. And that means it's key to build this approach based on real consumer understanding, putting their passion, behavior, orientation, preference at the center of our communication ecosystem. So in a communication landscape with a consumer that is empowered more than ever, we are witnessing this digital ubiquity as an aspect that is impacting on connecting lives. And for us, it's key to establish this connection in order to support a value exchange through our communication, but also with our product consumption. And a value that is not only one way, but must be bidirectional to build this long-lasting relationship. So having a data-centric approach, focus on consumer, and also allowing a digital delivery optimization is key. It's easy to say right people in the right moment with the right message, and is the new normal nowadays. But it's important also to acknowledge that behind that concept, there is a huge architecture based on expert tools, specific way of working to leverage on cross-functional teams. And this is our everyday bread and butter. So we are really trying to have this ongoing optimization across the digital channel, real-time analytics at the center of our process, because another important aspect that I want to highlight is to establish and to identify relevant KPIs. It's something that often in the rush of the everyday activities, we just leave at the end of the process. But if we start keeping these really at the forefront since the beginning, we can really build an approach that can allow the media teams, the agency, in course correcting the performances, especially on those initiatives that are able to drive the transaction that is particularly relevant from a business perspective. So in the past year, for example, we have enabled this automated data sourcing from both the digital channels where the communication delivery happens, but also from our own digital assets that for us are the places where we can nurture the consumer's interaction and relationship. So all these elements are critical in order to achieve our objective, and it's important to have this analytics layer as a must-have to be in place for all the markets where we are active across the globe. Then there are other aspects. We are conscious about the data maturity that can change market by market. And for that reason, we allow also to the local teams to have this nuanced approach. But then if we identify some best practice, it's important for us to understand how to scale up across other markets.
That's really fascinating, Giuseppe. Thank you so much for that. And I think, Kiessé, I saw you nodding and agreeing with a lot of those different elements. I'd be interested, do you, in your world, do you see those, how do you see those approaches differing market to market? Because obviously we've talked about here about kind of data maturity in different areas and that kind of stuff. So does that really drive different approaches per market for you?
So when it comes to the differentiation per market, for me, they always two key elements that we need to keep in mind, right? That really dictate the amount, the quality, and the availability of the data that you get in order to tailor your marketing efforts. The first one is about market maturity, right? If you consider emerging markets, for example, where you have a very dynamic, rapidly changing consumer behaviors landscape, but also simply market conditions, real-time data in that context is incredibly valuable to help you adapt to those changes. Conversely, right, if you look at more established markets where consumer behaviors tends to be more stable, historical data can offer more reliable look-back insight, especially when you're talking about strategic planning. And then the second element is about technological sophistication, right? Because the availability and reliability of the data can vary significantly from one market to another due to the availability or lack of advanced digital infrastructures, which will determine, right, what you get in order to help you improve your campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, it's absolutely fascinating what you're saying there around the fact that it's not, you don't always have the readily available data in some markets that you may have in other markets. And yeah, an interesting point you touched on there as well was around the historical data and the value around historic data. How do you see that split in terms of real time versus historic and that relationship between the two? Do you is it kind of as simple as a 50-50 split between historic and real-time data, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's more nuanced than that. And as far as we are concerned, we tend to leverage both historical data and real-time analytics, but they primarily serve different purposes. I say primarily because those are not the only purposes that they serve. When you look at historical data, for example, it is great to support strategic planning, like I've mentioned earlier, whilst real-time analytics is going to be great to support tactical adjustment, as we spoke about in the beginning. And then when it comes to historical data more specifically, benchmarkings, for example, is important, right? Because it allows you to benchmark current performance against past campaigns, helping you as a brand, as an agency, as a team, to set realistic goals and expectations, because you have comprehensive view of what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked. And then there's also the factor of utilizing trends, because with historical data, what is really, really important, especially in more established market, what you tend to see is that you can easily or more easily identify long-term trends and patterns, which then provide a solid foundation for strategic planning, right? You understand, seasonality better, you understand how certain audiences react better, and all of that really brings value to the table. But we leverage both, just like in different contexts.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So from what you're saying, it sounds like the historic side of things is much more from a strategy and planning perspective, and the real time
Correct.
is more on a tactical adjustment.
Exactly.
While mid-flight. Giuseppe, is that something that resonates with you? Is that something you see in Coca-Cola?
Yeah, I'm fully aligned with this vision, with the reflection brought from Kiessé. I just want to add a quick build on this, because thinking also at the broad landscape in terms of media partners, it's important to have this conversation with the big players that
Exactly.
they can guarantee also a homogeneous approach across regions, across markets, and with that we can also scale the different features that they allow at the local level, putting together historical but also in real time data and improvement of our activation.
Absolutely, and that collaboration with big players across market is very important, because especially when you look at the context in which we are evolving right now, and some of the challenges that we've all faced in terms of cookieless and then no longer cookieless, and some of the decisions that big companies like Google have made, it has become crucial. And I think every brand, every agency, every partner is realizing that you can't operate effectively and you can't really have strong results with data that is isolated or activated in silo. And just your data set is not enough for you to get a scaled and deep view and understanding of consumer behavior, but also, category performance. So that collaboration is also about how do we bring both our data together that enables us to achieve that scale and that depth. And that's very much important. And I definitely agree with Giuseppe on that.
Just another thing, because he touched upon these elements about the data that cannot be siloed, and indeed it's more and more crucial also to understand how to leverage on first-party data together with the capabilities that these media players are able to bring, and also how to exploit any kind of opportunities to really interact effectively with our consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Giuseppe. They're really, really interesting. And I think that kind of leads me nicely onto our kind of second area of discussion, which is a little bit more around machine learning and obviously some of the more kind of emerging approaches and emerging tools that we see in the market now. And obviously, as we've touched on already, there's so many different sources of data, leveraging data from the big players, leveraging your own data, and some of the challenges that comes with that. Do you guys see a place for predictive data and machine learning within this ecosystem? Because it feels to me like as more and more data comes to the party from different areas, that machine learning and being able to use predictive data becomes much more important. I don't know whether that's something that, firstly, that you agree with, and secondly, it's something that you guys have a take on.
When it comes to predictive data, machine learning, and I'm sure, at some point we're going to talk about AI, what we can, I hope, all agree on is that these technological advancements have enabled us, agencies and brands, to really have a deeper understanding of customer behavior and really create more personalized and enhanced consumer journeys. We now have the ability to map out with much more clarity and gain a clearer understanding and picture of what works and doesn't work throughout the entire consumer journey, from the point of discovery to the point of purchase. So we understand, for example, what content and what ad formats work best, what level of ad exposure is more effective, which placement drive better result, what's the optimum bid price, especially when we're talking in the context of programmatic advertising for a given audience, which product to push and what ad mix to have in order to have better effectiveness. And all this really enables us to focus our efforts and really deploy tactics that will drive result. It could be targeted promotions, right? If you understand exactly where a consumer is within that journey, right? And if they're likely to churn or they're likely to not buy, you could, deploy targeted promotions to encourage them to buy. But it's also about pushing tailored product recommendations because you know exactly what they're looking for, or customized content because you know what they're going to resonate to, or focusing your effort on the most promising audiences because you know what are the audiences that achieve better result. In summary, I think the game plan here, and which takes me back to one of the things that Giuseppe said earlier, is to put the consumer at the center of your strategy to drive better result overall, right? It's not just about having access to predictive data or, AI or all these fancy terms to do nothing with it, right? Like it's really like putting back the consumer at the center of things to achieve those results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it comes back to something that I'm a big believer in, which is that, there's a lot of different tools out there and a lot of different ways of working. AI is obviously becoming hugely prevalent across every facet of every business, but certainly very much within our world. But it very much lives and dies by how it's used, and you need to have that real key focus on the customer, and then use the various tools to be able to enhance that and to be able to meet them where they want to be met.
And what you said is actually important. It's all about enhancing, right? All the technologies that we have access to, it's about enhancing. It's not about necessarily creating something new or, forgetting things that we've known for years. It's about enhancing what we have known and how do we make that better.
And indeed, again, I would like to use my brand perspective because thinking at our marketing activation, we always start defining an ideal consumer journey, this kind of blueprint in order to build this experience-based model. And with experience is not just experiential, it's any kind of interaction, any kind of relationship that we can build together with our consumer. And this always starts looking into insight and learning from the previous activation in order to nurture our conversion funnel. Now, maybe the concept of funnel is not so cool anymore, but it's important also to understand how to tackle that, and also being conscious that nowadays this funnel has both collapsed and exploded with every interaction just a click away from the transaction. So the optimization that Kiessé was also talking about a moment a while. It's worth noting that when we look at the transaction, for us, it's not only the purchase, the final consumption, but can be any opportunity to collect data, interaction to strengthen the loyalty through these unique content or experiences or any further connection with the valuable target audience to enrich and to enhance the relationship with them. So basically, we can look into the insight in terms of platform formative performances, looking back at the previous activation. But once the campaign starts delivering the communication through the digital channels, we have there the opportunity to really drive an optimization based on target audience interaction and engagement. So on the real elements that can help us to enhance and to improve our performances. In that moment, the predictive data, the machine learning show the best of their capabilities because we can really drive and support the journey of our consumer along the funnel. Through the data, we can reshape the journey, shorten or lengthen according to the user behavior. And it was exactly what we were talking about. In order to have this automated process orchestrated and fueled across all the channels together with our media teams, partner agency, and digital media vendors as key players in this scenario. Also, in this case, the capabilities that enable an advanced way of working mostly depends on data, the maturity of data and the available feature across the main digital platform. But I would say that this is the main way of working that we used to have and how to leverage the predictive data as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree. And I think there's a couple of real themes that are starting to come out here. So obviously we've touched on the first one, which is around keeping the customer at the heart of it and using these tools to enhance, which is really, really important. And I think there's a couple of other areas in there I'd like to explore a little bit, which is around the kind of the emerging technology side of things, and obviously if we're pulling these technologies in an ideal world to enhance what we're doing rather than kind of reinvent the wheel on it, are there any there's a couple of elements here really around speed and agility, which we touched on earlier. So it's keeping the customer at the heart of what's happening, being able to act with speed and agility and accuracy and understanding while you're mid-flight, to really make the most out of the campaigns that are happening and to make them as personalized and as impactful as possible. And at the very root of it, make sure that the money that's being spent is being spent effectively, and you're getting bang for buck there. So the next question I've got is around keeping in mind those different elements. Is there any kind of emerging technologies or approaches that you guys have come across when we're looking forward that utilize technology in that way and really kind of are looking to might transform the market in the coming years? Kiessé, I don't know if you want to start on that one.
I think when we're talking about emerging, right, there is technologies, but it's just trends in generals and ways of working and values that we all espouse as an industry at any given point. And I think looking at it just from a trends perspective, there are many trends that I believe are poised to truly, redefine and reshape how we leverage data in the coming years. And just because I know that AI and cookieless are the expected answers, I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about different trends instead, because we've had conversation ad nauseum about AI and cookieless. Some of the trends that we see and that we are talking about with our clients and industry partners include voice search and virtual assistant, right? Of course, they all use an element of AI and machine learning. But with the rise of voice-activated devices like smart speakers and virtual assistant, optimizing for voice search is becoming crucial. And this is changing fundamentally how consumers search for information and interact with brands. So this requires brands to adapt the SEO and their content strategies, which require the right data to be able to do so. And in the line of voice search and virtual assistant as well, we have conversational search, right? We were talking a few weeks ago with other partners about the rise of Perplexity as a platform. That also is fundamentally changing how consumers are searching, which means that brands have to adapt to those new trends. And I think the second element is metaverse marketing. I'm sure some of my friends in the industry that are hearing or will be listening to these podcasts that are hearing me say the word metaverse, we laugh because they always know how anti-metaverse have been in the past. But what I would like to mention here is that even though metaverse isn't where it needs to be, it's still very much an emerging trend. I still believe to a certain extent that it is also a new frontier for digital marketing, especially in industries like gaming, right? So we can see, some brands that are now beginning to leverage data to explore virtual worlds and how to create immersive experiences and engage with their consumers in, really new and creative ways. But also to build brand loyalty, right? Because they're getting closer to those consumers and having a closer relationship with them. So I believe this trend is expected to grow as technology and consumer adoption of virtual environments increase as well. But I don't think it's going to be like the revolution, but in certain categories, it's going to be relevant. And I think the last one, and I know we talk about sustainability a lot, but I think this is a trend that is here to stay, especially because it is so dissociated from advertising and marketing, right? It's a trend that affects every single area of our life. And that's about sustainability and what it means in terms of ethical marketing. Because all of us three here that are talking in this room, we are consumers, right? And we are becoming increasingly weary and starting to value sustainability and ethical practices more and more. So brands in that context are going to need to leverage data to highlight their sustainability efforts and align their messaging with consumer values and fostering that trust and that loyalty. But also leveraging data in the marketing context to make their ads and their ad choices more sustainable. What do I mean by that? By understanding, for example, the carbon footprint generated by your ad, it helps you decide how you can reduce the weight of those ads. You also can make decisions such as whether certain formats like video, which has a heavy carbon footprint, are even required for certain campaigns, right? And overall, just make better choices as a business, better choices for your consumers, but better choices for the planet, because there is no planet B, as the French president said, right? There's a plan A, plan B, but when it comes to the planet, there is no planet B.
Planet B. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. Do you see? Obviously, we talked about sustainability and voice and meta, and these are really, really, really interesting areas to look at, and we could probably unpack them on a completely different podcast. There's enough to go out there, I think. But I'm just interested in do you see a conflict between the need to prioritize sustainability and also the need to meet customers? Because I know there's a big push at the moment around kind of short form video and this kind of stuff. So do you see a conflict between the way that we have to prioritize, as you say, there is no planet B, so we have to prioritize our planet, and we have to prioritize sustainability, but also that need and that push to be successful from a campaign perspective?
Yeah, there is actually 2 points of tension of at times when it comes to sustainability. There is the need to achieve the bottom line, which more often than not clashes with the need to achieve sustainability credentials. So that's the first point of tension. But the second point of tension also comes from times from consumers, right? On one hand, we have consumers that are becoming increasingly demanding in terms of sustainability practices and values. But then if you look at in the context of commerce, For example, on one hand, we're like, oh, I want my brand to be sustainable. I want the product to be sustainably sourced. But then you ask the same consumer if they'll be willing for their products to arrive 3 days later. They'll be like, no, 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 I want it now and I want it yesterday, right? So there are those points of tension that exist. But I think it does take educating, and it does take making bold choices. Like when you mentioned, pushing for short form content video, and we know how heavy it is, and we know the carbon footprint and the impact that it's had. It's about really asking yourself the real questions, right? It's like, this for every single campaign that you push out there, do they all require all those assets? Some of them don't. It's about making the right choice for a specific campaign and ensuring that, little by little, you are improving your footprint. But it also can work with technologies that also help you reduce the weight of those creative that you deploy out there in the wild. I'm not going to name any technology because I'm not here to advertise for any company, but there are technologies out there that exist to help you do that and achieve those practices.
Yeah, if I can bring my perspective here, I really resonated with what Kiessé brought in terms of main tension and how brands can really have a role and bring their contribution in this. And it was exactly where we are trying to drive our efforts in order to build also a more sustainable approach, also starting from communication, but also having an impact on product and consumption as well. If I can have just a step back, I will say that generally speaking, we are witnessing also a transformation. So as a marketer, we are embracing this new journey, and all these elements, new tech, but also a different mindset on how to tackle the communication. It's key to redefine how we tackle all this topic, but also how we leverage on data to create more impactful marketing strategies that take into account all these topics. We are constantly exploring now and integrating this advancement to stay also at the forefront of innovation. So it's important to make the most of these new capabilities in order to really drive a value to our final consumer. Thinking at the emerging technologies that maybe we will see in the next few years, I would like to have the same exercise as he said, not to mention the AI, the generative opportunities that are there. I just want to add, I'm fully aligned with the metaverse, with this augmented reality or virtual reality that can bring immersive experience to our user. Another point as a fast-moving consumer goods brand is the IoT, because I believe also in the evolution of this Internet of Things. The proliferation of connected devices provides brands with the unprecedented access to consumer data from various touch points such as smart appliance, wearable, retail environments, whatever. So this data can be really harnessed to create a more comprehensive consumer profile and enhance also an omni-channel marketing effort. So again, it's not only one touch point, but it's looking holistically to all the different channels that we can activate. And by embracing these emerging technologies and approaches, we are really evolving our data-driven marketing strategy. So again, the predictive data at the center on how to meet the demands of a rapidly changing global market. This innovation not only enhance our ability to connect with the consumer more effectively, but also drive sustainable growth and competitive advantage with the other brands.
Yeah, very, very interesting, Giuseppe. I think there's a few areas that really stood out to me in terms of what you're talking about there, and I think the one that I find really, really interesting is the piece around the whole omni-channel thing. Now, omni-channel as a phrase and as a kind of a buzzword for us all has been around for quite a while, but certainly I feel that kind of really embracing that omni-channel approach is becoming more and more important as you say, Giuseppe, with that connected that sort of connected lifestyle, that Internet of Things, all the different elements and all the different touch points. Do you think we, and I say we, in general, how close do you think we are to, as an industry, in terms of mastering that omni-channel approach? Do you think we're close, or do you think there's a lot more we can learn to really maximize that omni-channel side of things?
So for sure, in the past year, we made a lot of steps ahead in the evolution of this approach, and also the conversation that brands with the media vendors had in order to streamline the full communication journey had helped a lot on that. With an omni-channel strategy, we really can reduce the communication fatigue from a consumer perspective, and we can really enhance the relevance of our messaging. So it's important to keep building and to keep practicing our muscle on this approach, because it's something that can be only enhanced in the future based on all these new technologies, new data that can be brought together in order to strengthen the connection with our users.
Just one thing that I would like to add when it comes to omni-channel, I think fundamentally most brands, and at least household brands, they tend to be omni-channel, right? If you think about omni-channel in the context of the multiplication or the proliferations of channels where consumers are, and reaching them at the right touch point within the environment that matters at that moment. I don't think that's the problem. Brands understand that clearly. I think where we often get challenged when it comes to omni-channel activation is the data feedback, because when you speak about the proliferation of channels, when you need to reach users, you also mean de facto. You're also talking about the proliferation of technology sometimes that is required to use to reach those users. And more often than not, all the technologies that we bring to the table don't speak to each other. So you don't often have that single view, that single thread of that user from A to B, right? It's easier achieved within a walled garden or a specific retailer ecosystem, but not so much when you're starting to jump from one retailer to another or from one walled garden to another. And this is where the challenge often lies. It's the data feedback to have that seamless understanding of a consumer from A to Z.
Yeah, really valid point. And I think a really nice point to end on there, because it brings us back very, very nicely to what we were talking about earlier in terms of we have to be putting the customer at the heart of everything. And if you've got lots of different technologies and lots of different approaches that don't talk to each other, it makes that job very, very difficult. So as we move forward and emerging technologies expand out and start to thrive, it's a really good point and a really thing to keep at the heart of what we do, is that actually being able to have that joined up A to B across different technologies, across different platforms, across different approaches. So really, really good point. Thank you. And I think we're running out of time, so I think we'll have to end it there. But thank you both so much for coming on. It's been a really fascinating discussion. I think there's a couple of points in there that we could have probably had a whole separate podcast on if we'd had the time. But no, I really appreciate your time, guys. Really fascinating, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thank you for considering our insight today. Really appreciate it.